This is Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming. Welcome to episode 0.10. Let's roll. Thank you for joining us here for the 10th episode. 0.10 of our beta podcast, perpetually beta podcast. We got a great show. Hopefully it's not going to be the cluster suck. We try to keep this clean. The cluster suck that it was last week that took us roughly 12 hours to put together. We're going to try to roll through this quickly, maybe in about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, which is our typical run rate here on Mostly Gaming. Up a bit late last night, I was watching the Overwatch League, and I don't know if you guys are into it, if you watch it, if you're into Overwatch. Let me just say, I suck at Overwatch. I can't play it. I was raised on consoles, right? So I had all of them as a kid. All through the 90s, let's say, kind of, and then, got into the PlayStation and the 2 and the Dreamcast and all the way through up to probably about 5, maybe this latest generation, when the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One came out. I converted over to PC, largely because the consoles sucked. They were becoming less powerful and more expensive, and it kind of had that tipping point where I think I wasn't the only one. A lot of people just basically decided, you know what, I can build a PC for about the same price as these things, and be significantly better off with cheaper games and all of the other things. I mean, I would play on PC, but it wasn't my go-to device up until this last generation, which is going on 6 years now. So when Overwatch came out on the PC, you're going to play with a keyboard and mouse, and I had a difficult time transitioning over to the KBM, and so I just never got good at it. To be honest, I haven't put a lot of time playing it. I'm not an Overwatch player, which sounds kind of funny because I am a big fan of the Overwatch League, which is kind of funny, right? I mean, I'd rather watch a game that I don't play. But it makes sense because, you know what? I don't play football either, and I love watching football. And I don't play hockey, and I love watching hockey. So what the Overwatch League, let me just kind of take a couple of steps back here. So Overwatch is a game. I won't get into telling you what Overwatch is, but it's kind of a combination between, a MOBA and a first-person shooter. It's cheerful, it's colorful, it's cartoonish, it's teen-rated, and best of all, it's by Blizzard. Blizzard is probably maybe the best developer in the world, if not, easily top. I hasten to even say 3 because I can't think of 2 that are better. So the brain, powers over at Activision Blizzard decided that they were going to take this game and turn it into an esport, but in a city-based league. And rather than doing it the way that other esports were doing it, where you just enter a competition and you get your buddies together and you call your team Misfits or Splice or Cloud9 or other names out there that have become popular, and then you win some prize money. What these guys decided to do was to basically create a city-based league. But a city-based league that is international, right? So granted, mostly in the U.S. right now, and we're hoping to see a team in Toronto, but an international city-based league. So there's 12 teams now. You can see them listed here, beginning with the Boston Uprising, kind of all the way through international teams like the London Spitfire, the Shanghai Dragons, the Seoul Dynasty. Those are the international teams. I believe there's only 3. The other 9 teams are in the U.S., including San Francisco, Philadelphia, New York, a couple of teams in L.A., Houston, Florida, Dallas, and Boston. The league is broken down into 2 divisions, Atlantic and Pacific. Again, it is, very much a U.S.-centric league right now. I've heard they're going to add a bunch of teams for the next season, but the cool thing here is that it's a city-based league. So if you're in Boston, you can cheer for the Uprising, and the best team in the league right now is the New York Excelsior. And they won stage 3, and there were kind of celebrations on the street, just like when a team wins any other stage. So they put together the city-based league. They've got these kind of legitimate owners, like guys that own football teams and hockey teams and things like that, the billionaire guys that own everything else, and they put together a roster, and they play, and they have standings, and they have broadcasts, and they have Friday and Saturday nights, and Wednesdays I think are the days, and it's legit. It is a sports league, but it's an Overwatch league. And the viewership has been very, very good, I would say. I mean, they're getting yesterday I was watching the last place team. So the poor Shanghai Dragons are 0-36. They were playing the Houston 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 Outlaws, of course. Look at that. Look at that logo, by the way. That is an outstanding logo for the Houston Outlaws. I bought some of the shirts as well. It's 2 guns, right? But making kind of like a bullhead. Anyway, both teams are struggling. Both teams are not going to make the playoffs. Game started, early afternoon, I would say Eastern time. And there was over 100,000 viewers watching it on Twitch, which is good for any event of 2 teams that are losing, in a mid-afternoon game on a Friday. So the viewership has been very strong. They've done a terrific job. The playoffs are coming up. I think that they're just finishing off the season, and then they're going to have the championship. There was an announcement that came out recently that said that they sold out the Barclays Center in New York. That's like a 20,000 person arena for the first championship tournament. And this is the future of esports. I know that there's other ways of doing it. I know that fans of League of Legends are, very up on the League Championship Series, which is also going to like a similar but different model. I would say the LCS is kind of like, kind of a European soccer, kind of style, Premier League, or maybe more like the European League in general. More of that kind of an approach, whereas the Overwatch League is more of a North American style, NBA, NFL, NHL kind of model. I'm in North America. I prefer this model. I like to cheer for my team. I've taken to cheering for the Houston Outlaws, which are not doing great. If I take a look at the standings here, they are. You know what? They're in the first spot out of the playoff race for the league right now. They might have a chance. I guess they're 11-8-1. They're plus. So I'm not sure if they're going to make the playoffs. Probably not. I'm going to guess. But the this is for the 4th stage playoff cut, by the way. We'll see where it goes. I think, you know, I would love to see, you know, other teams doing this. This is the overall standings here. So there they are. They're in 8th place, overall 19 and 16. So at least they've got a winning season. They're the I guess the first team. They're in 8th place, and I guess the next team has a losing season. So I guess they have that to be happy with. The reason I like the Outlaws is just I love their logo. You know, you know, it's as simple as that. But you know what? That's how a lot of people do it. A lot of people like you know, Green Bay because of the cheeseheads. I don't know. But you know, I could see this happening. You know, in terms of other city-based leagues in North America, maybe around the world. You know, the fact that I could be up here in Canada yesterday, and I watched two games. I watched Houston beat the Dragons, and then I watched the Seoul Dynasty team, which is, you know, vastly underperforming. I think their potential kind of squeeze out a win against the Florida Mayhem after that. Which was a pretty tight, pretty close game. But this is the way to do it, I think. And you know, the fact that it's international, this is the only type of a league realistically where you could have a global global roster. You know, we've got teams here from 4 countries. Hopefully they will be out. I'd love a team here in Canada. I'd love to see teams in the rest of Europe and across Asia as well, and maybe bring them into Africa and South America. You know, why not? The game is digital. They are, interestingly enough, you know, planning to, you know, expand this, you know, to whatever number of teams. And you know, they all play out of the same location. So all of the games are played in Los Angeles. All the teams play in Los Angeles. I'm not sure if they're going to go out and do what the other teams do, which is basically play like home and away games. But that would be cool to see too. Anyway, I mean, that's kind of, you know, a preamble here. The Overwatch League. The Overwatch League is legit. And if you're into Overwatch, even if you're not, I'd give it a try, give it a shot. And it is a lot of fun. It's professionally done. It's well produced. It is a sport up there with hockey and NHL and football, as far as I'm concerned. And this is a definitive change in the way that esports is going to be produced and viewed, I think, going forward. We'll be right back in 10 seconds. And we're back. Thank you for sticking with us here on Mostly Linux, on Mostly Gaming. Taking a look through the newsfeed, let me just start off with a bit of a clarification on this Gnome Foundation $1 million donation that we touched on last week. We went through the press release last week and saw the press release as being massively confusing. In terms of you know, the wording, you know, whether the donor was really investing $1 million or donating or matching. It really was a horribly unclear, badly written press release. And we parsed it in real time and we're completely confused. The people at Gnome you know, contacted us and basically said and helped to clarify the situation to the best, I guess, of their ability to do it. So as far as we know, and as we've been told by the people at the Gnome Foundation, I believe the head of the Gnome Foundation is a gentleman by the name of Neil McGovern. That's this gentleman right here. So here's the scoop. Somebody is going to put up to $1 million. right? So let's call that $1 million, though it's not, but it's up to $1 million. Part of that is going to be a donation, so it's not going to be dependent on matching funds. The rest of it is going to be dependent on matching funds, but we're told it's not on a one-to-one basis. So what a matching fund usually means is I put in 100,000, you match that with $100,000 in donations, which is $200,000 in total. That's not quite what this is. And while they won't give the numbers, and I don't know why they just don't give the numbers and say here's what it is, as opposed to this cryptically badly written press release, the person is coming in with some amount of money. Right? I'm just going to make up numbers to keep it, make an example. And Neil, if you are listening to this again and you want to clarify, or if you have clarified, please do so. I don't know that anybody really cares, but I don't know why you just don't tell people. Maybe it's related to the fact that the donor wants to be anonymous, but I don't see how telling anybody makes him less anonymous. But in any case, so let's say the guy, whoever this amazing donor is donating $500,000. So that $500,000 will go in regardless, and it may be over time. Again, that's not clear. It is over 2 years. What the timing isn't clear. But let's say he's going to put in, some amount of money per month over 2 years to get to 500,000. The rest of it then would be subject to matching funds. So in this case, I'll give you $500,000. I'm going to give it to you over 2 years. And what I'll do is I'll give you another $500,000 if you raise $500,000. And that's why it's dependent. So if they raise the other $500,000, I'll give you the balance of it. And so your total now is $1.5 million. So it's a way for them to basically get some extra money coming in by encouraging them to go out and do a better job fundraising. To be perfectly honest, I don't really care anymore. I think I've spent too much time on trying to parse out the press release, which I still maintain is badly written and confusing. But let's go on to other things here. The other thing that came out, which we watch because we're geeks, is the Linux market share on Steam. Thanks here to Gaming on Linux for the wonderful graphs that they provide. So the numbers came out. It looks like we are at 0.57% according to the latest Steam survey. You can see it here, wonderfully done over time. This chunk right here is not true, right? So this is these numbers were, Valve came out at some point and basically said, what, those numbers were all wrong because we screwed up our counting because of some internet cafes in China, right? And so I'm going to say that really, if you want to take like a smoothing, you would take this 0.6, which seems to be the last legit number, and take it over here to this, which was 0.55, and then 0.57. So again, these are not necessarily perfect. It's based on the Steam surveys, but you can see with some kind of standard of error, probably not different, which is a little disappointing. I think we definitely prefer it to be up closer to 1 or where it was before, but it's good to see that we are at least not in a downtrend anymore. These are the languages. Again, the charts here are largely driven on the errors. We can see here, in fact, that maybe they started happening over here, or maybe this is a legitimate increase. It's hard to know. What's going to happen here is that these numbers are going to spread out, and they'll normalize, and we'll see where they are. It looks like they have already, right? It looks like we have. It looks like it's normalizing, like I said before. The numbers of Asia, again, I don't really care about the Asian numbers. They are what they are, and the more gamers, the better. Maybe we can do a better job getting Linux out into Asia. Yeah, you know what? That's a good question. I don't know what the gaming usership or just the usership rates in Asia are overall. So that's the numbers there. Again, my anecdotally, running some stuff, I would tend to think that maybe the numbers are a little bit higher than this. But all of that is conjecture, and this is the closest thing that we have to a fact. The other big news item for the week is this announcement that Microsoft has been talking to GitHub about a possible acquisition, and this is kind of strange. I'm gonna say, Microsoft is moving into areas that kind of rub up against the core of Linux, right? They added all sorts of flavors to Windows, Linux flavors. They are a member of the board of directors of the Linux Foundation. They're one of the largest donors to the Linux Foundation. And now they're talking about, maybe buying, or there's a report that they're in talks to acquire GitHub, which is the main developer hub for open source software. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what is driving this, but I'm going to come back in a second and let you know. So going back to this story, Mary Jo Foley, who writes the All About Microsoft blog, well, I guess the report came out in Business Insider. She's reporting on it here. But Business Insider claims that the two have discussed the possibility of an acquisition on and off again over the years. If Microsoft were to bid on GitHub, the move wouldn't be as odd as it might have just a couple of years ago. Since Satya Nadella became CEO in 2014, Microsoft has been stepping up its open source presence. But what if it's a good thing? Now, let's just bear with me here for a second, okay? Microsoft has lots of programming chops, and I don't use Windows. I have, and I don't, I'm not, religious about it. I'm not a jihadist, about Microsoft. I respect their model. I just don't like their product. But the open source community relies on contributions from developers that help to create and distribute and manage and maintain the software that we use every day. And the move by Microsoft into open source may be good to the extent that they provide additional manpower and, let's face it, some discipline to the process of developing, managing, maintaining, and distributing open source software. I think the fear that people have is that Microsoft will take it over and somehow then add proprietary layers into it. But you know what? I think the opposite is happening. I think Microsoft is moving to a more open source model. Now they're always going to have a proprietary link to what they do in order to protect their market share and to figure out how to monetize it. But they can benefit from moving to open source, particularly since they are no longer relying on proprietary software to drive them. I mean, Windows is becoming less and less important because the growth is all happening on mobile, and they're just not there. The Xbox is a proprietary system, of course, but it's not doing that well compared to the PlayStation. You have a company here that has moved from basically a Windows/Office company into a cloud company. And really right now, the growth is all about Azure and the cloud services that they're offering. And in order to continue and maintain the growth of that, they need to open up to the open source community and to the developer community and to the broader community of people out there that are not employed by Microsoft. And that's basically us, the Unix users, the Linux users, and the developers. So this is an interesting move. I don't know how it's going to shake up, but at the same time, I'm not terrified by it. Now, there was another interesting take on it I was reading over here. I think this is also a Business Insider article, and that's not a very flattering picture of Satya Nadella. I don't know why they would choose that picture. But in any case, what this article basically says is that the reason Microsoft would buy GitHub is LinkedIn. They talk about the opportunity on the cloud that I just mentioned. This is Chris Wanstrath, who's the founder of GitHub, by the way. But their conjecture is that the opportunity for Microsoft is fairly straightforward. I'm just quoting from the Business Insider article here. If it can get the Microsoft Azure cloud tightly integrated with GitHub, basically give developers an easy way to get a GitHub project up and running in the cloud, it can kill two birds with one stone. Developers could love GitHub even more, and it would drive more usage of Microsoft Azure. There's another more subtle reason why a hypothetical acquisition could work out for Microsoft too. When Microsoft spent over $26 billion on LinkedIn, CEO Satya Nadella said that the company was investing heavily in making sure that current and future workers had the skills they needed to succeed in the modern economy. In Silicon Valley, at least, it's not uncommon for an employer to ask for a GitHub profile alongside or instead of a traditional resume. So if Microsoft is trying to understand the modern skills economy, GitHub could provide a compelling glimpse. In other words, it's an add-on to LinkedIn that provides additional data and information that they can then mine for what is happening out there, trends, developments, interests, projects, and so forth, and then maybe integrate them into the Azure cloud. This is all about the competitive battle between Azure and AWS, Amazon Web Services, and I think it has less to do with Microsoft attacking open source. They're embracing it, if anything. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if I saw that happen in the next little while. I'm not, like I said, I'm not necessarily all fussed up about it, but we'll see where it goes. Finally, let's just take a quick look at the tweet stream. Let's see what I've been tweeting about over the last week. What have you missed by not following me at mostly_Linux? Let's take a quick look. Okay, here's an interesting article. Facebook commits to seeking more minority directors. And that's, you know what, I think I see a lot of boards out there. I do believe that, boards tend to recruit friends and acquaintances in their circle when they're looking to add new boards. I mean, a board is a very important position, and you want to have somebody that you can vet and know and be, kind of one or two links away from. And typically that may include mostly men, for example. Most boards are massively male dominated because they are already male, and you are looking to add somebody, and mostly men, and usually it's who that gets to be on the board. So from that perspective, there's an opportunity, if you're a director, to look outside of your circle and try to find women or other people that are not, exactly like you. I'm not even going to focus on it, from the perspective of race or gender. I would focus on it from the perspective of people that are not in your circle, whatever that circle may be. And if you can find somebody that is more capable, then you really, really improve your board by basically bringing those people on. So that's, I think, the reason for doing it. Saying, for example, I'm going to bring in more minority directors, for the sake of having them, I think is less interesting. And I really don't see the purpose of even saying it. Just do it, right? I mean, it's kind of like virtue signaling. Oh, I'm going to find more minority directors. Well, good. Okay, just do it. I mean, what do I care? I don't even use your platform. But it just kind of led to me thinking, okay, that's great. You want to have more minority directors. I'm not going to argue. It's your company, and that's there may be opportunities there if you look beyond your circle. But what about your shareholders, right? I mean, I bet you that if you do a demographic, and I'm sure it can be done, Facebook has all the data, maybe it's skewed towards one particular gender or one particular race or one particular, there's going to be some anomalies in there. And maybe you should try to figure out a way to get other shareholders to own it. I mean, maybe going out and finding just directors is a step too close. Maybe you should try to basically diversify your shareholders. And then if you have a diverse shareholder base, maybe then you can reach out to communities that represent your shareholders. Anyway, whatever. I won't get into this thing. I mean, Trump is basically Trump, right? Love him or not, he is what he is. And we could talk about, crazy things that people are saying about him or that he's doing. Some Google Pixel 3 leaks. There's my favorite logo of the Outlaws. Gotta be more interesting things that have happened out there. Fortnite allegedly coming to Switch. Of course it will. BioWare did a quick teaser for Anthem, which to me it looked as generic as it possibly could. I am not that optimistic about it. I've kind of, BioWare disappointed me 3 games in a row with Mass Effect 3, and then Inquisition, Dragon Age Inquisition, and then it's kind of like, just like an old, kind of fond memory of an old pet that is no longer with us. But if it comes up and it's great, I'll be the first one to jump on. You know what? That's about it. Oh, you know what? The only other point that I'll make here is just Beamdog sales. The Beamdog games, Dungeons and Dragons games in general. There's a big Dungeons and Dragons convention on this weekend, and so Steam has put the D&D related games on sale for up to 75% off. So if you're into those kinds of games, take a look at your Steam store and pick them up, because it looks like they're going to be discounted for the weekend only. Anyway, that's it. Let's come back here after the break and look at the new releases. And we're back live here with Mostly Linux on Mostly Gaming, episode 0.10. We're going to take a look and see what's going on in the Steam world this weekend. Okay, they don't seem to have any kind of funny gimmick for playing. Oh, okay, there we go. So they've got a whole bunch of 90% off games. It looks like the Warhammer games. Let's take a quick look at this and see what it is. Games Workshop, Skulls for the Skull Throne. What is this all about? I did not catch this at all. Skulls featured games and content. What is this? And why is it not running? I don't know. New 2 in-game jerseys. Okay, so it looks like, okay, I don't know what it is. There's some broadcasting stuff trying to pop up here. My Steam thing is going crazy. Tried to load something, but it looks like they've got a whole bunch of games here that they're offering. It looks like they're offering loot or gear or whatever. Most of these games, I don't see any of these games supporting Linux actually. There's Dawn of War 3 is 75% off. That's definitely something to check out. What else here? Man of War Corsair. I don't know what that is. Anything else out here on the Linux side? Just those 2 games, huh? Oh, no, wait a second. Gladius, Relics of War. That's a turn-based strategy game. So we've got a small sprinkling of Linux native games here in this Skulls for the Skull Throne thing. I don't know. It's not very clear what that is. What else do they got going here? There we go. Let's take a look at our discovery queue. Hey, number 1 on our discovery queue. Okay, this game, I actually saw this yesterday. It was just released May 31st, 2018. It is called Overload. It is a new 6th Degree of Freedom shooter with intuitive controls, amazing lighting, and graphics. From the creators of Descent, Overload is the best zero-gravity robot blasting combat ever. Do we have a video?
An attack on this colony is imminent.
Alright, I think we get the drift of this Overload. Reviews are very positive. Revival Productions. I'm going to add it to my wish list. It is VR for Vive and Rift. I'd be surprised if the VR worked on Linux, but I've been surprised before. The game is fully launched, so it's a single-player story campaign with 15 plus, excuse me, full-size atmospheric levels. Upgradable player ships, 20 terrifying robot types, pulsating action. It's also got a multiplayer mode. It's your typical shooter, fly around, kill things kind of game. You know what? I'm gonna see if this thing. Let's take a look. So Overload VR on Linux. Vive server. Okay, I'm gonna assume that it's not. If anybody knows differently, give me a heads up. I could see this being quite the the vomit fest though. VR. And I've got an Oculus, unfortunately, which does not work at all on Linux, and I'm not inclined to plug it back in. It's been sitting on a shelf for probably most of the last 6 months. Let's take a look at the next in the queue here. Fault Milestone 1. I don't know what you wish to accomplish by attacking the royal family. Let's take a look at the video here. Fault is a series of science fantasy cinematic novels using a unique 3D camera. So this goes back, it's in my discovery queue from 2013. It's 60% off, maybe that's what it's there. It's not for me. Here's another new one. So this is May 17th, 2018. So it's a couple of weeks old. It is called Nepenthe. Nepenthe is about $5. It's got 5 user reviews, and it looks like somebody did it in their basement. Which, you know, which is fine. It may still be good, but not for me. Magical Diary Horse Hall from 2012. Let's take a pass on that one. The Secret Order 3 Ancient Times is in my discovery queue. Find a way to destroy the ancient artifacts. The Secret Order 3. They made it to 3 games. It's very positive. It's available for Linux. It is travel back in time to find the mythical kingdom of Erenhart, prevent the chaotic artifacts from killing your father and destroying the universe itself. The Secret Order 3 Ancient Times continues a thrilling story-driven series with a new suspenseful narrative that successfully blends the fantastic and detective noir genres. It's an old, well, it's not an old game. It's a couple of years old. 50% off at $5. I'm going to pass. Higurashi, When They Cry How. Chapter 3, Tadarigurashi. This is also a visual novel that... why is this being like, you know, why am I getting all of these novels? Does it give me like a reason why it's choosing these? I don't know. Whatever the case is, the reviews on it have been very positive. It's called Higurashi, When They Cry. The Silver Case is another debut title from world-renowned developer Suda51. Has been fully remastered and localized to English for the first time. So it's a Suda51. Looks like a graphical novel. M-rated. And available for Linux by the Silver Case. Don't see if there's a video there. That's actually, you know what? It's a Suda51 by Grasshopper. I don't think there's any other Grasshopper games on Linux right now. I'm just going to put that on my wish list and check it out later. Sally Face is... it looks like it's an episodic. Overwhelmingly positive. About a year and a half old. Delve into a dark adventure following the boy with a prosthetic face and a tragic past. Unravel the sinister mysteries of Sally's world to find the truth that lies behind, hidden beneath the shadows. Never heard of it. Let's face it, I'm never going to get around to it. Next. Canarium. Canarium is a chilling Lovecraftian game which follows a gripping story involving 4 scientists and their endeavor to challenge what we normally consider to be the absolute limits of nature. Why is my screen going crazy? Looks promising. Zootrope Interactive. It's about $20. I'm gonna add that to my wish list. Victory! This game is called Major Minor Complete Edition. Are you sure this is legal? Okay, Major Minor Complete Edition is a highly engaging visual novel. All right, I get it. Okay, so it's a highly engaging visual novel with memorable characters and multiple endings. Traverse worlds, solve a murder mystery, and partake in political revolution inspired by greats such as Steins Gate, Tales of Symphonia, Persona 4, and Future Diary. An unforgettable science fiction fantasy adventure. It's rated very positively. It's 80% off. And it's available for Linux. I am going to put this in my cart, and I'm going to check it out and let you know for next week what the heck it is. I am intrigued by the Tales of Symphonia Persona 4 links here, and for $4, what the heck. Next, Figment is an action-adventure game that invites you to explore a unique, surreal universe filled with music, humor, and multi-layered narrative. Join Dusty and his ever-optimistic friend Piper on an adventure through the different sides of the mind, seeking to restore the courage that's been lost. So this is some kind of a imaginary... I guess you're exploring somebody's imagination, their mind. It's a platformer. It's by Bedtime Digital Games. It's roughly about a year old. It's $20. Let's give that one a pass. And last, but not least, is Lords of Strife. This is a new game, May 22nd, so it's basically a week old. The game of intrigue, tragedy, and armadillos. Looks like a pixely, whatever game. Got armadillos that are being killed by some maniac with blood everywhere. All right, look, I don't begrudge you your first attempt at building a game. Good luck to you, Revolutionary Interactive. Not for me, but it may be for you. So that's the discovery queue. Let's take a look now and see what is new. I think we covered a few of them already, but let's take a look and see what the new releases are. All right, so the first one here on the list is the Sibling Experiment. This is from May 26th. This is another, man, these visual novels are everywhere. An indie visual novel, an indie visual novel with family themes is the description. It is by developer Godline. It's called The Sibling Experiment. I do not see a video, just some pictures here that you can see. Again, when it's a visual novel and it has names like The Sibling Experiment, I kind of get scared off. I don't know what the rating is. Even though their personalities vastly differ, Jasmine and TJ share the same sentiment. Their brother is insufferable. Whatever. Okay, let's take a look and see what else is new. Let's take a look back here. New releases under categories. Maybe that'll be a kind of a better way to take a look. Okay, so all right, so it looks like we've got some new content. I think we've gone through that. Let's take a look at new top sellers released this month. Okay, here's a better list, okay? Cultist Simulator. That one has already been added on my wish list. Seize forbidden treasures, summon alien gods, feed on your disciples. Cultist Simulator is a game of apocalypse and yearning from Alexis Kennedy. It is an indie simulation RPG card game with a story. If you are into all of these things or any combination of them, you know, I mean, I can't really think of anything else out for it. It looks like kind of like a tarot kind of theme. Play as a seeker after unholy mysteries. It's about $20 on Steam. Cultist Simulator. Overload, I think we talked about earlier. That looks good. Albeit online, we talked about last week. So that's about it. I mean, so not much in the way of new, and frankly, not much in the way of what we've been playing, because we have not played anything this entire week. I might have touched a little bit on. Pillars of Eternity 2 and Dark Souls Remastered, but other than that, it's been a pretty busy week at work without much game playing. But you know what? When I come back, I'm going to take a look at some Steam alternatives. I've been spending this whole time talking about the Steam stuff. There's other ways to buy stores, of course, on Linux, and I'm going to go through some of them as our topic of the week, and then I'm gonna kind of take a look at our Lutris as a game launcher and see how that works. We'll be back after this. And we're back. Thanks for sticking with us here to the topic of the week, which is Steam alternatives. You know, Steam is big, and I am, you know, our show is in a lot of ways driven by Steam. You know, we come on to Steam, we take a look at what's new, we take a look at what's popular, we took a look at, you know, the reviews and the ratings and so forth, and the sales. Steam is the best thing that ever happened to Linux gaming. No question about that. There's no debate about that. It is well organized. It offers family sharing. It is the best storefront on Linux of any type. Okay, so just to go over the top over there, and Valve, you know, love them or not, which I love them, does a great job in terms of supporting Linux, the Linux community as well. But it's not the only storefront. And you know, may even be actually losing some market share out there. I think, you know, there are Battle.net and Origin and Uplay. All of those guys are basically starting to push their stores more and more. So let's look at some of the alternatives to Steam and see what we have. First of all, let's begin with Linux native alternatives. And the first one, I think I'm going to say the best one, is Itch. Itch is available at itch.io. It is a store like Steam, but it is open source, and it doesn't charge the developers anything to list their games on the site. I'm not really sure where Itch gets their funding or their money, and that's kind of interest to me. But you know, as a gamer, it doesn't really matter in a sense, because you know, what matters to me as a gamer is you know, how does it work, and can I get my games on it? And you can. It has support for all platforms. It's got a pretty good looking site design. Let's just kind of maximize this and go through it. You know, things are sorted by tags, for example, and you can, you know, take a look at things that are on sale. You can focus on, you know, Linux. You can find free games only, and there's quite a lot of free games on here because it's relatively easy to add your game if you're a developer and to distribute it, and you know, it is a good way to basically get it out quickly, and perhaps not be as lost as you might be on Steam. There are, there are games that are, going to be, kind of in the $15 to $20 to $30. I mean, you can get normal games as well, let's say. And the advantage here's that Nepenthe game that I saw over there. It's available here for $3. The good thing here is, again, like I said, these games do not charge. Itch does not charge a fee for developers. So if you're buying a game on Itch, all of your money goes to the developer. And Itch, as I said, has a full Linux support. It's got a Linux native app. Yeah, I mean, it's the games are DRM free. You can see, you can see that it is a good looking system. Yeah, and it's I like it. I use it. I find it easy to install, easy to use. The games are always there. They're updated. It does basically everything for you. So if you want to try an alternative to Steam, primarily for indie games, again, I think the best one is Itch. So give that a shot. Another one that is very popular, let's kind of kill that, is, of course, GOG. And let me launch my browser, and let's take a look at GOG. GOG does not have a native Linux app. They've got the GOG Galaxy app for Windows and Mac OS, but they do not have one for Linux. But they do have Linux games listed here. If you go to the store, you can search for system, click on Linux, and you will see basically just the Linux games. Hey, that's $100, for the Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire Obsidian Edition, which is what I believe I have, but I don't think I paid that much for it. So what you might want to do is just basically compare prices between Steam, Itch, and GOG if you're shopping. Of course, another place to go to compare prices is thereanydeal.com. And this is a cool site because what it does is it aggregates the prices of games across all of the different storefronts. And it will take a look at your, if you link this to your Steam wish list or to your Steam account, it will actually highlight and show you when games are on sale. So, for example, let's take a look here at Sid Meier's Civilization 5. It will list the places that it's on sale and where you can basically buy it for the least amount. So, right now, you can get Civ 5 on Game Planet France, or I guess the European things here, for about $10.67. These things are also converted into your local currency. In this particular case, maybe for a North American, your best bet is going to be Fanatical. Fanatical is a great storefront as well. I use Fanatical quite a bit. Fanatical has, unlike many of the other ones, it actually has a it actually will sort things by Linux for you, which is worthwhile if you're a Linux fan. So that's GOG. I not a big fan of GOG myself. I appreciate the DRM stuff. I would get my DRM stuff on Itch, frankly, if I wanted a DRM game. If it's available there, I'll take Itch over GOG. Anytime. The developers get more of the money, and I get my DRM free game with a native app for my desktop. But you know what? I know a lot of people like GOG, and it is there if you don't mind basically downloading through a browser and then installing your games as you see fit. Now, those are the main Linux native storefronts. What I do though is I use Lutris, which we talked about last week, and what Lutris does for me, I'm gonna just reboot it here, make sure that everything is all kind of hunky-dory and identified. So let's go. Lutris is going to launch, because I buy games on different services. Let's say whether it's Steam or Itch or GOG or Battle.net or Origin or Uplay. Why are you not running, Lutris? Glitch. No glitch. You can see my list of games right here, and yeah, it's crazy, and more games than any human could ever play. But what Lutris does is it actually kind of finds the games on my system, regardless of storefront, and I can then just run them from a single point. Now I know there's other apps out there that you can use. I believe one of them is Games, which is an open source launcher. This is an app called Games. You can find it on Ubuntu, Solus. It's pretty well available on every Linux distribution out there through the PPA. I think it's included. And so this basically is a launcher like Lutris. The reason I prefer Lutris is that this will find only the Linux native games. So if you only have Linux native games on your system, then of course this is fine. It finds the graphics, it runs the games with a couple of clicks. No, maybe not. You know what? Some of these may not be Linux native. Is there anything here that is not Linux native? I don't think so. In any case, I mean, this is another option right here. I prefer Lutris, so let's go back over to that one. And the reason I prefer Lutris is that, as I said last week, it includes runners for all sorts of different stuff. If I switch the lookout of the screen over here, this is going to list the games by platform. And if I sort them by platform, I can see these are my Linux games. And I got a huge new hard drive upgrade, and I downloaded everything. Well, at least all of my Linux games anyway. My Linux native games are all downloaded right now. So these are all here. It kind of shows me when I last played them, when they were installed, and gives me some other information. Then you can see I can run Nintendo games at the same time. That's Earthbound. Basically with one click I can install the game. It'll show up here, and then from as a gamer, I don't need to get all worked up in terms of figuring out what system runs it, how to launch it, how to close it, and do all of that kind of stuff. It just basically takes care of everything for me. Clearly I like Lutris. I think that's no surprise. In terms of other stores, though, on Linux, you can run, for example, the Battle.net store. So let me run that in. This is another alternative, of course, to Steam. Since we're talking about alternatives, Battle.net in the latest versions of the Wine drivers and DXVK is essentially perfectly compatible. And so you can run the storefront. You can basically run the storefront directly rather than the individual games. The games will then launch, and you can play them from the Battle.net app itself. And there we go. So you can see here that that Activision Blizzard is starting to move away from Steam and third-party stores. Call of Duty Black Ops 4 will be a Battle.net limited game. In other words, it will not come out on Steam. So another blow for Steam over there. Destiny 2 is also there. I've tested everything here on the Blizzard side, and they all work perfectly fine under Linux. These are all running on DXVK right now, glitch free. Destiny 2, the Activision games does not work. I'm not sure about the Call of Duty Black Ops 4. I do know that the other Call of Duty games work, but Destiny 2 does not work. I'm not really sure why. I don't have Destiny 2 on PC. I've got it. I think I bought it way back from my Xbox, so I haven't tested it. I do not believe that Destiny 2 works. But this is another storefront. Yes, it's not native, but it does work on Linux. And you can basically download and install and play the games as you would, if you were native on Windows. Likewise for the Uplay store, I'm not sure if I have Uplay running here, but I do have it. I do have Uplay here, so let me just run Uplay. Let's take a look. There it is. Hopefully I'll do this right. Maybe it's not. Maybe I didn't do it right. But Uplay in any case does work. Let me just try it one more time, just to verify that Uplay works, which I know it does because I've run it before but do not have it installed as a separate launcher. Let's try that one. There we go. So Uplay works. You can download, you can install Uplay as you would any other game or piece of software. Do it through Lutris, and you will pop up right into Uplay, and then you can download and install these games as you see fit. You can see I've got a bunch of Uplay games listed here. These have all been verified to work. I'm going to say Assassin's Creed Origins is still a little bit glitchy. I do know that others have been able to get it work. I have not, and largely because I don't care enough to. I could probably figure it out if I wanted to. The other ones I've played and they work fine as well. So Uplay is another alternative. Origin is another one. I don't know if I have Origin running here. I do not have Origin running here. I do have lots of games on Origin. There's none that I really want to play right now, and so I just haven't bothered. Maybe I'll kind of take a look. But the cool thing is, again, you can, by using something like Lutris, you can free yourself to a large degree from being tied to one particular store like Steam. You can buy games on itch, for example, and then just have them here in your in your game list, whether they're whether they're Linux games, whether they're Windows games, whether they're PlayStation games or Dreamcast games or NES games or SNES games or whatever the case might be, and just basically click and run them. You can see here there's an itch runner there as well. And so the games are there and you play them and they're pretty cool, very easy. I mean, this is the way to game. I think I'm very happy with the setup, the way that I've got it working. I can play games from pretty well every platform, from a couple of presses here on one spot. Lutris will update its own runners directly. It'll take care of a lot of the back end stuff, and so whether you buy your games on Steam or any other platform, including GOG, itch, Battle.net, Uplay, Origin, open source or whether you're running emulation software, here we are. And we'll be right back after this with some closing comments. And we're back. A bit of a shorter show this week. I hope you can appreciate that it's a very busy time right now. For me personally, just in terms of work-related stuff, I can give you guys an update later on, hopefully, in terms of what it is that I've been working on over the last little while. It's very, very exciting, and I'm actually looking forward to sharing it with you at some point. A couple of things, just kind of roll out there. One is please follow us. You can follow us at mostly_Linux on Twitter. We are on YouTube. You can find the links if you go to mostly_Linux on our Twitter feed. We always have the latest episode pinned. On that, you will be able to find, our audio, our Stitcher, our Twitch, our YouTube links. And we'd appreciate it if you would follow us. Let's get some numbers up there. I can share with you that we're very excited that we are now over 100 subscribers on the RSS feed. If you do not subscribe to the RSS feed, it's very simple. Just go to mostlylinux.libsyn.com. and click that button. That will give you access to the RSS feed, and you can either directly subscribe or use that link to place into your podcast app of choice, and it will subscribe you to it. There's also a link there for Stitcher if you use that, and for Google Play, along with our Twitter and email address. So yeah, we'd appreciate that. We're adding a couple of new things. We're going to add a Discord server for our community. I am working on adding our podcast to the iTunes store, which hopefully you need to get approval and so forth. Hopefully we'll get that through, and we will be on the iTunes store beginning at episode .11, which is next week. And we're tossing out an idea of starting up a Patreon. Cost of the podcast is really not that much. If obviously time is the biggest issue, but we're thinking if we can build a community around the podcast on Patreon, we can generate some cash flow and then put it back into the show for the betterment of the community. None of the money that we ever get from a Patreon, if we launch it, will ever go to us. This is not our source of income, our living, or what have you. Everything will go back into the show, into giveaways, technology, server costs, and whatever. Not ready yet, but we're thinking about it. Finally, we're also on Reddit. If you go to Reddit and look for mostly_Linux, you will find us right there. Join us there. We're building a community over there as well. Looks like we've got about 19 subscribers there. All giveaways, airings of shows, everything are always going to be on our Reddit feed first. Mostly_Linux. Subscribe there. And that's it for episode .10. We'll be back next week and hope to catch you at episode .11 on Mostly Linux, on Mostly Gaming. Catch you later.